on the edge of the ocean, where the wind carries the taste of salt and the horizon stretches wider than the eye can hold, a new kind of home rises. Steel bones anchored in the earth, softened by the soul of the coast. They call it the Coastal Industrial Barndominium. But it isn't just a house. It's a story of resilience, of transformation, of a structure that wears its honesty in every beam, every rivet, every weathered line. Tonight, we'll unravel how rugged industry and ocean calm collide to create something unforgettable. Imagine the raw power of steel, standing tall like a shipyard skeleton, built to endure storms that roll in from the sea. And yet, wrapped around that strength is the whisper of the tide, the softness of driftwood, the quiet warmth of linen, the kind of stillness only the ocean can teach. This is not a contradiction. It is a harmony. The Coastal Industrial Barndominium is where opposites fall in love, where concrete and breeze meet, where glass frames not just a view, but a way of life. Here, every gust of wind becomes part of the design. Every shadow of a gull stretches across walls that feel both timeless and alive. It's more than architecture. It's a reminder of what happens when we allow strength and serenity to coexist. It's a home that doesn't just rise from the shore, it belongs to it. And as we step deeper into its story tonight, you'll see why this design isn't only about steel or sea. It's about us, about the way we find beauty in the unexpected, and the way a house can feel like it's been waiting for you all along. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button because it's a simple way to show your love for these incredible designs. The tide moves in and out, steady as a heartbeat. Seagulls trace the sky in loose arcs, their calls carried on the salt-heavy wind. Wooden docks, worn soft by decades of waves and footsteps, stretch into the water like faded memories reaching toward the horizon. This is coastal living, raw, rhythmic, eternal. A place where the ocean decides the pace of your day, and every sound carries a reminder of both power and peace. Now, imagine within this landscape, something unexpected rises. Not the weathered shacks of fishermen, not the painted cottages perched on stilts, but a barndominium, born from the bones of a barn, yet reborn for another life. A shape once tied to fields and farmland, reimagined here by the sea. It feels almost like a paradox. The barn, that symbol of labor and earth, transplanted onto the shore where wind and water rule. And yet it belongs. The broad frame, the open span, the honest materials, they all find a kind of resonance here, as though the barn was always waiting to stand beside the ocean. This is where past and present meet. The barn, once a place of work, becomes a place of welcome. Walls that once sheltered grain or livestock now hold laughter, warmth, and quiet evenings watching the tide roll in. Its industrial skeleton whispers strength, its coastal heart breathes ease. The coastal barndominium is not just a structure on the shore. It is a story of transformation, of continuity, of honoring what was while creating what can be. It teaches us that spaces are not fixed in meaning. They evolve just as we do. From labor to belonging, from land to sea, the barn finds its next chapter here, where the water meets the sky. We share new content regularly to help you create spaces you love, so don't forget to subscribe. Beneath its coastal calm, the barndominium stands on a framework of sheer strength. Exposed steel beams rise with quiet authority, their dark lines tracing the sky like the ribs of some great vessel anchored ashore. Corrugated metal clads its surfaces, unapologetically raw, catching the light in ways that remind you of old shipyards and weathered docks. And then, there are the windows, tall, unyielding panes of glass that refuse to look small against the horizon. They open the home to the sea, not as decoration, but as declaration. It's as if a shipyard skeleton became a home, solid, unapologetic. Every bolt, every seam, every edge speaks of durability, of honesty. Nothing hides here. The materials are what they are, unyielding, deliberate, true. And by their very nature, they tell a story of resilience. On this coast, storms will come. Winds will whip through, waves will hurl their force, and the salt air will try to eat away at everything it touches. Yet this structure stands ready. Its steel does not flinch, its walls do not bend, its bones do not betray the promise of shelter. It was built not to resist the coast, but to endure with it. But here's the question that lingers like salt on the tongue. Strength alone does not make a home. What softens steel? What warms concrete? What takes a structure designed for endurance and turns it into a place for living, breathing, belonging? Because beyond the beams and the bolts lies something more subtle, more human. The part of a home that isn't about survival, but about comfort, about connection, about peace. And so we ask, what happens when the industrial heart meets the coastal soul? If you found this video inspiring, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support means to me, and it helps keep the design ideas coming your way. If the steel is the skeleton, then the soul of this barndominium comes from the coast itself. Step closer and you feel it, the way weathered wood wraps itself around the cold lines of metal, softening what was once stark. Its tones are muted, sea-washed palettes of sand, salt, and sky. The blues are not bright, but softened, as though brushed by waves and faded by sun. Every surface seems touched by the ocean's hand. And then there is the air. The breezes slip easily through the open floor plans, carrying with them the smell of salt, the sound of gulls, and the ever-present whisper of the tide. Here, the sound of the ocean is part of the architecture. The light itself dances through glass walls, shifting hour by hour, spilling warmth across steel beams and polished concrete. In this space, even silence is alive, filled with the rhythm of waves. Contrasts reveal themselves everywhere. The warmth of driftwood rests against steel supports. Linen, pale and soft, hangs gently beside black iron frames. Industrial bones remain visible, but they are not alone. They are partnered with textures that soothe, colors that calm, details that remind you of the sea's embrace. It shouldn't work. Steel and serenity, concrete and calm, the industrial and the intimate. But here, it feels inevitable, as though the two were always meant to meet, always meant to balance each other. This is the coastal soul, a reminder that even in strength, there can be gentleness. That even the hardest materials find softness when they open themselves to light, air, and water. And in that marriage of opposites, a home becomes something more, an experience, a refuge, a story that feels both grounding and infinite. If you love this type of look, hit that subscribe button to help us create more videos. And let us know in the comments what you'd love to see in future videos. Within these walls, the story shifts from steel and sea to the people who breathe life into them. Because a house, no matter how strong or beautiful, is nothing without the souls who call it home. And this barndominium feels like it was built for many kinds of lives. Perhaps it's the writer, craving solitude, who sets their desk by the great windows and lets the ocean become their muse. Perhaps it's the sailor, finally ashore, who finds comfort in the echo of waves against glass, a rhythm that feels familiar, a lullaby of homecoming. Or maybe it's a family, filling the wide rooms with laughter, their voices bouncing against steel beams, softened by the sea air slipping through open doors. A home like this doesn't just shelter life, it shapes it. Its openness invites you to slow down. Its strength gives you a sense of safety, of permanence, even as the world outside is restless and wild. Its textures, cool concrete under bare feet, linen curtains that sway like sails, driftwood smooth to the touch, remind you of where you are and of the quiet joy in simply being. Imagine walking barefoot across the polished floor, the salt breeze brushing against your skin. Imagine nights when the sound of the tide slips into your dreams, mornings when light spills in wide and unbroken, wrapping you in gold. Inside these walls, the boundary between house and ocean blurs. Life here doesn't feel separate from the coast. It feels entwined, inseparable. This is not just where you live. It's where you belong. A place where your story, whatever it may be, is not only welcomed but woven into the rhythm of the sea itself. Why do we feel drawn to spaces like these? Why does the industrial, once cold and distant, feel alive here, by the ocean's edge? It's a question that lingers in the salt air, one without a single answer. Maybe it's instinct. Maybe it's memory. Or maybe it's the quiet recognition that we, too, are built of contradictions, strong and soft, restless and still. There is something in us that seeks refuge, that craves walls sturdy enough to hold back the storm. But there is also something in us that longs for openness, for light, for the kind of calm that only the sea can offer. The Coastal Industrial Barndominium gives us both. Steel beams speak of endurance. Vast glass panes invite in the horizon. Together, they echo our own need for balance, strength without rigidity, freedom without chaos. And yet the mystery deepens. Is it really the home itself that captures us, or the life it promises? When we imagine ourselves here, are we longing for the coolness of polished concrete underfoot, or for the slower pace, the softer mornings, the sense of belonging that the coast whispers into our bones? This place becomes more than a structure. It becomes a mirror, reflecting back our hidden desires, to be grounded and yet unbound, to weather storms but still feel the warmth of sunlight, to live simply and fully, tethered not by walls, but by meaning. Perhaps that's why we can't look away. Because in this union of steel and sea, we see a version of ourselves we've been searching for. Not just a house, not even just a home, but a life.